Kevin Samuels, love or hate him, left an indelible mark on our community. His provocative approach and his brash delivery definitely left many of us in shock and awe. Now, I definitely want to know, who was this man? Where did he come from? One thing is for sure, he gave a voice to men who felt unheard. But I also have another question. Was it at someone's expense? Was it at the expense of Black women? His recent passing, without question, left some celebrating and others mourning the loss of their godfather. This is I've Got Daddy Issues, and I'm Dr. Torri J. And today we're going to talk about Mr. Kevin Samuels. Today I'm going to talk to my friend Lola Troy. She is the founder and an amazing talent when it comes to this conversation. She hosts an amazing podcast called Heal Black Joy. She started Heal Black Joy simply because she wanted to talk more about the joy and the pain we as a community were going through. So Lola, we got to get into this conversation.
Yeah.
Kevin Samuels, I know people have been talking about it and beating a dead horse. Some of our conversation has been about this, but what I liked was we had a different perspective. Mm-hmm. Here's my question. Is it accountability or was it disrespect? When Kevin Samuels approached this dialogue, Black relationships, how did you see it? Was it accountability to you or was it disrespect?
I saw it as both.
Okay.
I saw it as both. I think that he wants to hold, or he wanted to hold, Blacks in general accountable for the way that they were showing up in the world. He always talked about the high valued man, the high valued woman. And I actually took some time last night to watch a video to give his description of what a high valued man was. And unlike most Black women, I kind of understood exactly where he was coming from. Although I felt like he left out some key components to a high value man.
Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What was his definition of a high value man?
So a high value man to him, based off of his definition, was based off of society. You know, he described, if you buy a car, what is the value of the car? The value of the car is based off of how much you can pay for the car or how little you can pay for the car. It's not just based off of just him. So if society says that a man that makes six figures is a high valued man, then that would deem them high value. He had, I think, about 6 different components, and one of them, of course, was their income. The other one was networking with other high valued men, being of in a networking group, people that, you know, can barter whatever that they do in their industry with one another.
So it's networking and connection.
Also being able to be responsible in their home, with their families, with their wives, with their children.
And this was Kevin Samuels?
This was Kevin Samuels.
See, this is the part we don't know about. You know what I mean? Because we've cherry picked, and we've accused men of doing that very thing. Mm-hmm. But we as women have cherry picked the message as well.
Absolutely.
So look, I didn't know that part, and I've done some research myself.
Yeah.
So being able to take care of your home, I've heard some videos on that. So give me the rest of this that you learned. Look,
I was shocked. I was actually really shocked because I didn't want to come into the conversation, you know, and just pick, you know, because I think a lot of times with his content, and because I'm also a content creator, I'm a person that likes to eat the meat and throw the bones away.
Yep.
And I didn't want to come in biased as a Black woman saying, oh, he's coming against Black women all the time. So I wanted to go in and listen to the full context of the conversation, and as well as the full conversation, because I think what happens is he has clickbait content.
Come on.
He has clickbait content, and clickbait content is the content that's going to get a rouse out of you, the content that's going to pull at your emotional strings, the content that's going to get you to engage in his content.
The things like rating yourself.
Yes.
Can't pick a 7 because 7 is average.
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite is, as a woman, you have to be fit, friendly, cooperative, and submissive.
Right.
We're going to get into that part in a moment. That is the clickbait. What was the other? Like hanging up on women. His infamous last words. Clickbait. If you are 35
and older,
you are a leftover woman. Those are the words that we will remember forever. We won't remember what you're talking about. We won't remember his true definition. And he was basing that off of society standards, not his own.
Not his own.
Not his own.
Because you got to also take into consideration that he was an image consultant.
Yes, and not a relationship
And not
expert.
a relationship
And he kept
expert.
telling us that, right?
Yes.
Even when people would try to drag him into that. When you watch the whole show, he will constantly bring you back to image consultant.
Yeah.
And I looked up the word image. I really did, because it's how you see something. It's how you perceive something. It's a perspective.
And that's why he led with, what would you rate yourself?
Because it's an image.
It's an image. He was an image consultant.
But we were, as Black women, we were distraught by the rating ourselves. How dare he ask us to do that?
Yeah.
Now I had a problem though. How you gonna say people can't be an 8 or a 9 or even a 10 if they're not Beyonce or Beyonce? So you automatically throw women into a 5, 6, and you can't pick a 7.
Right.
You can't pick a 7. So he's already putting you what we would perceive as below average. And women found that offensive. Would you think that would be offensive?
It was very offensive, but it was based on society standards. And society standards have never been based on African American women.
Come on. The beauty.
The beauty. The beauty standard has always been a European woman. It's never been about us.
And even the numbers, the weight, the height. See, you done tapped into something right now, Lola, because I didn't know that was his definition.
Yeah.
You and I have discussed the high value man. We've discussed it needs to add character. It needs to add emotional intelligence. It needs to add, where are you in the process of your own healing journey?
And none of that was a part of his definition of the high valued man. It was always about networking, being with other men of high value, meaning that they made a certain income. So yeah, that's cool that you make a certain income, but that doesn't mean that you have emotional intelligence. That doesn't mean that you've done the work, on the healing work, the trauma work that goes along with being an African American man or being an African American woman. That doesn't mean that you're going to make a good husband or a wife just because you make money.
And I want to say this. I believe with evolution of who we are as human beings. Women definitely want a man to be a provider, a protector,
yes.
The standards that we've heard of, right? And that we grew up with. But there's also this place where I would rather you have some emotional intelligence and be lacking in some of the financial area, right? I don't want you to come dead broke to the situation.
Right.
But I don't want you to come dead broken either.
Right.
I need for you to have some level of growth and sense of self and awareness. Did you find that some of the men who followed Kevin Samuels had that sense of awareness?
No.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing, if there were anything that I would say that I didn't particularly care for when it came to Kevin Samuels, is that he placed so much value on being a provider, being a protector. And of course, we want those things in a family. We want those things in a husband and in a partner. But if you're talking about just his definition of high value, if we go back to the value of a man based off of society standards, those people that make that income, 9 times out of 10, they're emotionally disconnected. They don't really have high emotional intelligence. Yep. They're very, very disconnected because they're driven and focused on their career and not necessarily their family.
Yeah.
Which is where that emotional connection comes in.
So let's talk about the word value, because it's associated with values.
Right.
High value man. If I don't have the same value as you,
right,
and our values don't align,
right,
we can't move forward together anyway.
Right. It's not successful.
And so when we're talking about a high value man, it goes back to, what do I value? What do you value?
And that was the thing that I felt like he left out of the conversation, because it was more about what men valued and not necessarily what we all value.
Well, the song says it's a man's world, but I've also seen the t-shirts that say future is female.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you said it earlier. It can be both.
It can be both.
It can be both.
Yeah.
Here's the space I want to go to now. The voice of men. The work that I do with the foundation, I for years have dealt with this pushback from women. And when I look at it, I looked at it as accountability. I've said a lot of the things that Kevin Samuels has said.
Right.
Some of my male friends would call and text me, you need to get on his show. You guys have similar thought processes, because I work with fatherless individuals. I work with people who struggle with hearing a man's voice. I'll even tell you this. When we have volunteers who come to my organization and they're on the phone and they're taking calls and they're listening to men cry, they don't come back because they go, how many more men am I going to have to hear cry? I said, it could be all of them. We've never heard a man's voice in this manner. When we do, we don't do well with calling it accountability. We automatically take the stance of defense and disrespect. And I'm going to tell you, the clickbait was disrespectful.
Very much so.
But the message was accountability.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We missed the message from the clickbait. We didn't sit and watch, and who wants to watch a 3-hour podcast?
Right.
I don't.
I don't.
But what this left me thinking about was the debate between Black men and Black women, and how we still haven't quite gotten there. Although, like, we're supposed to fit together, but because we're still debating value, emotions, what relationships are supposed to look like, we can't come together, and we're still debating each other.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
Well, that was my whole sense. Like, if there was anything, the other thing that I had a problem with Kevin Samuels was it was polarizing a lot of trauma, just in his delivery. Because, yeah, women were calling in to talk to them, but how many women show up knowing that, okay, there's this father figure or this older brother figure that is literally going to berate me on camera, and I'm comfortable with that because they're used to that, because he reminds them of someone in their family. He reminds them of their dad.
Well, some of that was production too, because you can't have that many ratchet chicks calling in, validating your perspective. I don't know any, well, that's not true. I've met women like that, but I don't build friendships with women who have that perspective that he would have on the show.
Well, yeah, we don't, but there's a lot of women that do.
Clearly.
That they recognize something in him that they've experienced in their own family, in their own trauma.
I'm gonna tell you why I think he polarized the pain so much.
He did.
Because he comes from pain.
Of course.
This man that because I told you this when we talked, you were like, I think he did. He might be dead. And I was like, it's not going to show up on CNN.
Right.
And you were like, he's a celebrity, Torri. And I'm thinking to myself, he ain't that big of a celebrity. And this man showed up on every platform you could think of. But this is my issue. In doing my research and looking him up, he don't even have a basic Wikipedia page. We know very little about Kevin Samuels.
Right.
What we do know is he was born in Atlanta. He comes from a divorced family. Allegedly, he said he had a closer relationship with his mother than his father.
Yes, he did not know his father.
He has several divorces. He's supposedly, allegedly not close to his daughter or his children. And so it's easy to polarize pain when you feel pain.
Actually, I take that back. I saw an interview that he did with Vlad that said that his father was a Rolling Stone. So he was the only child from the product of his mother and his father, but he knows that he has,
Other siblings.
I'm talking about in the 2-digit numbers. And the other thing that we know about him is that he had cancer when he was in college.
Yeah.
He had like Hodgkin's, I think, in college that was in remission. But I noticed in that interview, when someone was interviewing him, his confidence was not the same as it was on his own show.
Based on talking about himself.
But
this is my concern, and this is my issue. We know very little about this person. I can go get a Wikipedia page.
Yes.
I can get a Wikipedia.
Yeah.
This man doesn't even have, when I tell you, there's no basic Wikipedia page. So when I'm looking at this pain that he felt. I get why he struggled. I get why many people would say, oh, he's got mommy issues. And you know me. I already knew he had mommy. I can pick up on it in a heartbeat. I knew he had daddy issues and I knew he had mommy issues because it's very easy to attack black women and say what he said about black women when you're still struggling with your relationship with your mother, when the person who you really want to get back with, get back at and say something to and tell them how much you hurt and how much they cause pain upon you is your mother. But you can't say it, so you take it out on every single woman that you come across, and you leave bodies, as I call it, along the way. I believe that's what Kevin Samuels did. And I want to say to black women who are watching and listening, I feel like we need to go back, listen to the content in its totality, and really take from it and not be so taken aback by the clickbait. The clickbait is to get you to the content. This man told black men, if you're a beta male, you make less than this a year, you shouldn't be married. You shouldn't have a woman in your life. You shouldn't be, but we missed that part. We missed the part. We only see the part where he is solely talking about black women are this, black women shouldn't be this, single moms this. I'm gonna ask, so we can wrap this moment up, the things he said about a single mom, what is your take on that?
The over 35 and being washed up and being a single mom, that would be me. I would fall into that category.
How did that make you feel when you heard that?
When I heard it, I felt like it was irresponsible. I didn't take it from an emotional place. I just thought it was irresponsible because I'm not getting ready to, take my direction from someone who has had 2 failed marriages and he's an image consultant. To me, my thing is, if I want to go to a person that, anytime you're trying to achieve something, you want to find someone who does it successfully, someone that can mentor you in that space, right? So if I want to talk to somebody about marriage and having a successful marriage, I would go to my parents. My parents have been married for almost 60 years, right? So they've seen it in every season: sickness, health, having money, not having money, raising children, parents, dying and having to go through that. I would go to them. I wouldn't go to someone who just gets on camera, and is irresponsible in their stance when it comes to black relationships. The thing that really bothered me about Kevin Samuels is because we are in this podcast content space, is that now he's polarizing and he set a blueprint for black men and black women to start having content where we pit ourselves against each other.
Very true.
That was the thing that really bothered me because I'm a content creator. So from an emotional place, I wasn't moved by it.
As a woman who's over 35, yes, I'm married, it bothered me.
Okay.
It bothered me.
Why?
Look at her, she done turned the tables on me. It bothered me because I understood how my sisters feel, and I could feel the pain of what my sisters who would take it emotionally felt.
Of course.
My sisters felt pain. I received text messages. There was lots of pain from his delivery. There was lots of pain from that. Yes, I'm going to explain it to them, but you can't, if someone's being triggered, you can't explain that away. So Lola, I want to thank you for this conversation simply because I do believe that we need to go back and review and listen. And listen with an ear to hear and not an ear to answer.
Yes.
What did we learn today? Kevin Samuels' message wasn't all bad. And if you go back and listen to the content from a place of a listening ear versus being defensive, you'll actually probably hear something that's healing. You'll probably hear something that you can take and place into your own life so that you can grow and you can be the person that you're called to be. Here's the thing. Kevin also spoke from a place of pain. He grew up in his own fatherless situation. And as you know, those who grow up fatherless also have issues with their mommies. I always say those who have daddy issues also have mommy issues. And there were times when people would say, oh, he hates women, he hates his mother. I won't say he hated his mother, but it goes to show you that fatherlessness is infiltrating our world in ways that many of you have never even considered. I know for a fact that this man had pain. He struggled, but we got to watch him struggle and work out his own thing, even while he was helping us work out ours. I'm Dr. Torri J, and this is I've Got Daddy Issues. Now next week, get ready. Next week is Unhealed Trauma Creates Unhealthy Relationships. We're gonna piggyback off of this conversation with Kevin Samuels, and let's see where this goes. Hi, I'm Dr. Torri J, and this is I've Got Daddy Issues. Tune in every Thursday for a new episode.